Support WrestleTalk!
Give us a subscribe.
The top 10 Shawn Michaels WWE Return Dream Matches. I'm Ollie Davis. This is the other one, Luke Owen. Welcome to the Saturday WrestleRamble show where, Shawn Michaels is rumoured for a comeback.
Apparently so.
If the Wrestling Observer is to be believed, the plan is for him to return in a tag match at the Saudi Arabia show, which is scheduled for, I believe, the 2nd of November. And this is the rumour, because you've got Shawn Michaels. He is likely going to be the special guest referee at Super Showdown in between Triple H and The Undertaker. Fine. And the rumour is that that's going to build an angle to set up, maybe. And this is all rumour upon rumour. The most solid report is that Shawn Michaels will return to the ring. Everything else is kind of rumour and speculation. That this will build to an Undertaker and Kane versus DX tag match.
So the DX versus the Brothers of Destruction at the Saudi Arabia show in November.
Because the Saudi Arabian prince loves that 90s WWF.
Well, by all accounts, that he wanted Michaels at the Greatest Royal Rumble. And that's why, the Greatest Royal Rumble had, Triple H versus John Cena. It's why The Undertaker was there. The reports was that he also wanted Yokozuna and the Ultimate Warrior. And that's why there were certain people... That's why Tucker Knight was on the show and Mojo Rawley. But what was that other guy's name? Bombay... Boba Bunte or something
the big guy.
The big guy. The guy that looked like Yokozuna. And they were like... Look, it's Yokozuna, or at least an approximation of him.
Is it Yokozuna? Hey, come and look at this thing over here, Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia.
And that's why he was on the show, because, he hasn't been seen since. I don't even think he's signed or anything.
Yeah, so it's all a bit pathetic.
Yeah.
But, money talks. Shawn Michaels has not wrestled since he was retired by The Undertaker, all the way back at WrestleMania 27? 26?
Something like
26, because the 25th one
was the first.
Yes,
it was the 26.
Which is around 2010, I think.
That is not a good WrestleMania. That's also the WrestleMania, I think, that had Triple H versus Sheamus. And you were like, oh, this is where Triple H is going to put over Sheamus and make him a star. And then Triple H won. And we were like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah. And John Cena won the WWE Championship again. We're like, oh, cool. And I think that's also one with Brett Vince.
Ooh.
Oh, and we're like, oh man, that is a bad WrestleMania.
That's rough going.
That is rough going.
But it had that.
The awesome main event. Awesome.
So, Shawn Michaels has stayed true to that, and he hasn't stepped foot, done a proper. He's done a few angles here and there. He's special guest refereed a few NXT matches at live events.
He's been kicked in the face by Daniel Bryan.
But this is like a full-on return, and the reason seems to be money.
Because money talks.
Yeah.
Arabian money talks.
There's honouring your retirement stipulation probably doesn't seem as important if people are talking in the realms of millions of dollars, $2-3 million for just a couple of matches.
Yeah.
And
probably just that one match.
Yeah. I think it's gonna. So the speculation is it wouldn't just be a one-off tag match in Saudi Arabia. There'd be other matches after that, just a few.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to talk about today.
Absolutely, because staying true to your retirement is one thing, but it would be nice to have a new house.
Yes, yeah. And he loves hunting.
He does love hunting.
New hat.
He can buy a brand new rifle
Hair
with that money.
That's what I would do. Yeah. we're with you, Shawn.
Absolutely, man. When I went to ask about hair replacements, surgeries and things like that, they're pricey. They are expensive.
Yeah. So we haven't, because what I don't want to see is Undertaker Shawn Michaels again.
Well, yeah, that's the thing with this. It's Shawn Michaels' return, but the matches that they're all talking about at the moment are all matches that are 20 years old, which is Michaels and Triple H versus Undertaker and Kane. It's all the Al fellas doing the old fella thing, which is lovely and it's great, like a big nostalgia piece. That's great. But what I personally, and I believe you would like to see as well, is Michaels getting in there with some younger guys, some new guys, some up and coming guys, and kind of try and elevate them a little bit. That's what I would like to see from a Shawn Michaels return.
Yeah, and this is it for Shawn Michaels. I think if he does come back and if he does build towards this WrestleMania match, that would probably be his last one. So you rather than say, hey, we've got another dream last time ever for sure this time of Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker, it's that CM Punk argument of, well, where are they the next night? Who's that getting over? Sure, it pops a buy rate for that one show, but really, you could just advertise, it's the return of Shawn Michaels, which is big enough in itself. People come back for that. All the fans that have fled from the 90s and noughties and teens, they come back to see Shawn Michaels and they see him wrestle a Nakamura, wrestle a Styles, and like, oh, I might stick around for the next night to see this guy that beat Shawn Michaels.
Well, absolutely. Well, Adam Bigelow of the Attitude Era podcast made this point that when The Rock came back in like 2011, I think it was, that was kind of one of the things that said like, oh, maybe I'll check out wrestling again. And it was, yeah, sure, like The Rock's return was cool, but it was CM Punk and The Shield that made him stick around and watch more, and that's why he's now watching wrestling on, regularly, and now he does it as his job. So you use these nostalgia acts to kind of bring back those lapsed fans, but you want to use the new guys to make people stick around. Yeah,
you bring them back in and give them something new, not keep them in that old nostalgia loop, which is unfortunately what WWE have done since, well, like I would say the last five or so years.
Yeah.
So we have some, and the other thing is Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker. It's not just because they're older. This is 8 years since that last match,
and you can't top that match.
Right,
Like, what could you possibly do that could top those matches?
Yeah, Undertaker's a hip replacement here. So we have picked 10 guys we would like to see. In number 10, Shinsuke Nakamura.
It was funny when we were creating this list as well, because like initially we were going to do 5, and then we were like, oh, actually, I think it's too many. We could probably do 10. But there were times when we were writing, it was like, I think I would have been really into this match a year ago, but now I'm less into that match. And this is one of those examples.
Yeah.
Like, if you'd have asked me when Nakamura was in NXT, Shawn Michaels versus Shinsuke Nakamura, I'd be like, oh, yes, absolutely, yes, please. But now I'm less into Nakamura than I was a year ago.
Great way to put over our first choice, Luke.
But having said that, when Nakamura wants to turn it on, he can do. And him and Michaels, I think, is a sort of match that Nakamura would want to turn it on for.
Oh, yeah. And just that, like, both guys are such good storytellers in the ring, and Nakamura's heel character.
Yeah.
And if Nakamura was the guy to finally retire Shawn Michaels again, that would be really good for Nakamura.
Yeah, that'd be really cool.
Number 9 is someone that HBK has said himself that he wants to face. There was a rumour last Royal Rumble in 2017 where Shawn Michaels might have come, like, apparently he was asked very heavily by WWE, come back for a match against AJ Styles. And in interviews since, he said, well, me and AJ could have a great match, but really, I want to work with people who are different to me. Like a big guy. And he said, like, this is the quote, and it always makes me laugh because it comes across a bit weird, is, oh, that's Samoa Joe. The things I could do with Samoa Joe.
Ooh, hello, cheeky.
Oh,
but yeah,
great kid.
But Samoa Joe, Shawn Michaels, yes, please. Like, that would be an awesome, awesome match, because you have got this kind of like psychotic Samoa Joe versus the veteran of Shawn Michaels. Like, imagine Michaels doing the pose in the ring. Like, this is his return. He's doing the pose in the ring, and all of a sudden, Joe doesn't even have an entrance. He just runs out, puts him in the clutch. That would be awesome stuff.
That's definitely like a building angle to.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the first. That's how it starts.
Yeah.
There's so much they can do there. Like, I think that's one of the most intriguing builds and stories you can tell, built like leading up to WrestleMania. Like the process of getting Shawn to agree to that match. I think Joe could be very good.
Yeah, he'd be awesome in that role. You're right. Yeah,
but
completely agree.
The actual match itself, it's not just Shawn Michaels versus new Shawn Michaels. We will get onto that though. It's Shawn Michaels versus this completely different style of wrestler.
Yeah.
Which, as HBK's genius pointed out, he feels he could tell a better story within the ring.
Yeah.
Number 8, Seth Rollins.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to give any spoilers away. He might be the only member of the Shield that's in this list, but Seth Rollins and Shawn Michaels would really, really tear it up. And that almost feels like that would be one of those. It's the old Shawn Michaels versus potentially the new Shawn Michaels.
The show stealing.
Show stealing, exactly.
Monday Night Rollins.
Monday Night Rollins versus Mr. WrestleMania. That would be awesome. What a build you could do around that.
So, of all the guys on this list, spoiler, there's no women. we're misogynists here. I feel like this is the match that would have the most benefit for the younger guy.
Yeah.
Because this is the most... Seth Rollins is already a made man in WWE, but... And I love Seth Rollins, but I wouldn't say he is on the level of like a John Cena or anyone like that. But beating HBK in a big main like profile match and putting Seth Rollins up there would do that to him.
Really would.
I think he definitely has the most upside, and the match could be incredible.
Yeah, that'd be absolutely awesome. Yeah, I think that'd be a great pick.
Especially because they both got
stompy moves.
Down,
yeah,
tuning up the band.
Lovely stuff.
Yeah.
Lovely stuff. That's right.
Yeah, so there's a lot of spots. I mean, Seth Rollins is so smart in his wrestling matches where he can, like, he's got his usual repertoire of sequences, and you have a little riff on that with someone else's move. So one of those moves being interrupted by a super kick.
Yeah.
Finn Balor's not on this list, by the way.
He is not.
Another guy like that.
That we were like, oh yeah, Finn Balor, that'd be an awesome match, but not feeling Finn at the moment.
Yeah.
You know, talk about saying creepy things. Just not feeling Finn at the moment.
Feeling Finn, and that, like, we love Finn, but it's just his placement and presentation on the card.
Yeah.
It's one of those matches where if Finn was put in that position, we'd be like, yeah, but what's going to happen the next night? WWE can't follow through on this stuff.
Yeah.
Number 7. This is in the Samoan Joe mood.
Samoan Joe?
Samoan Joe. Just describing him.
But not Roman Reigns, who's also Samoan Joe.
Yeah. He's Samoa Joe, and
Samoan Joe.
is Drew McIntyre.
Now, I like this one in particular because Drew, when he was on, I think it was Jericho's podcast, I think it was on Talk is Jericho, he was talking about how, like, because Michaels is now the final class in NXT. You go to Michaels' class, and that's just before
finishing,
yeah. Just before you get your call-up to the main roster, you work with Shawn Michaels, and he essentially just, like, fine-tunes everything that you've done thus far to make you get to the main roster and get booked poorly and not get on TV. So that's the finishing class of NXT. And McIntyre said that he learns more in that one class than he has in almost his entire wrestling career, because there are things that Shawn Michaels will just teach you. You'd be like, oh, I never thought of it that way, or I never thought to do something like that. And the example he gave was at his takeover match he had with him and Bobby Roode.
It's a great match.
Which is a great match, and they do a spot where there's a double down, and apparently they got the call from the back to say, like, it's time to take this home. But Shawn Michaels had taught Drew, was just like, I mean, they'll never take the pay-per-view off the air before you're finished. And so, like,
that's 90s Michaels.
Isn't it just? But the other point that he made was that, like, if you've got the crowd whipped up into a frenzy, the longer you stay down, the more frenzied the crowd gets. So when the referee came over to Drew and Bobby and said, like, it's time to get up and go to the finish, he was like, nope, we're staying down here a bit longer. And the crowd did get more ramped up, and Drew was like, it made the finish of the match so much better.
Yeah, what a perfect example of ring psychology.
Yeah.
If people are like, what does ring psychology mean? And it does have, like, quite a few different interpretations, but for me, it's that crowd manipulation where you are using stuff that you're doing in the ring to manipulate the crowd, essentially.
Exactly. The Honky Tonk Man, I mean, it was a shoot interview he did with Raven, and I think he was talking about, like, crowd reactions and things like that, and he was like, one of my favourite things to do is just to lock in a headlock, because the crowd will just start chanting boring at you, and at least they're chanting something. And if the crowd start chanting boring at me, do you know what I do? Just lock it a little bit tighter.
Just get that deep headlock.
Just get a deep headlock in.
So Drew is... he's more appealing to me than a Samoa Joe, weirdly, for that big man versus small man
It's almost that Diesel dynamic,
yeah,
really,
well, that's
isn't it?
what it's playing off of.
Yeah.
And I just got this visual of Shawn looking up and Drew not even craning his neck to look down, but just with his eyes.
Yeah.
Just that face off. It gives me shivers.
And, like, Shawn would be the perfect guy as well, because he would just sort of walk up, realise he's just staring at his chest, and then do the slow look up and realise what a mountain he's against.
Yeah. Number 6, Andrade Cien Almas.
This would be an amazing match. This would be so good.
Yeah, we were just looking through the the rosters to see if we've missed anyone, and I just went, Almas, and you went, oh yeah, and we both like, oh my god, this is a great idea. Yeah, it's I don't really know how you would tell this story to get Shawn to agree.
Well, where you got Seth. Like, we were talking about how, like, it would be Monday Night Rollins versus Mr. WrestleMania, of just, like, you know, let's steal the show together. I always want to steal the show. You always stole the show. here it almost feels like you've got Zelina Vega to do this, of being like, you were Mr. WrestleMania, but there's a new Mr. WrestleMania in town, and his name is Andrade Cien Almas. He is El Idolo, and like, you'd go use Vega to be like, you're the past, he's the future.
Yeah. This would be a star-making performance for Almas. They'd have a great match.
Yeah, they really would.
And it's just the only problem with this one is it would get. But whereas Seth Rollins, it would catapult him to almost immortal status. This would just put Andrade in the main event mix, I feel.
Yeah. Well, good.
Well, yeah, good. It'll be the start of something rather than the proper culmination.
Yeah.
Number 5 is my, I think this would have more upside.
Yep.
Though than
it
Almas,
really, really would.
Is just Aleister Black.
Oh, man. So, the Sweet Chin Music versus Black Mass.
And that's what you tell. That's the story.
Yeah.
The 2 kicks. Who's got the strongest
and
boot?
not only that, about Shawn Michaels is all about the show, it's the showboating, it's the dancing, it's the posing and everything. Aleister Black is all about, I am stoic, I am calm, I am sitting in the ring. I'm not about showing off. I'm just about kicking your face in.
And any of these NXT guys, you can just kind of make up a story that Shawn has been training them, and maybe you even bring them up with Shawn as a manager for Black, and then it just becomes a slow story of the student saying, I'm better than you, teacher, now I will prove it. And Shawn's like, I'm doing this again, and you build it like that.
I'm not sure I could get into a Shawn Aleister Black partnering.
I know what you mean,
but,
yeah.
But I see what you're getting
some
at.
Some kind of thing where, Michaels helped him out in NXT.
You think you taught me something, but actually I knew more than you, or you never did.
And that would be a great way to debut Black.
Yeah.
We
looked at be a really great way. The Ministry of Darkness. That'd be a really great way.
We looked at a lot of NXT people, like Matt Riddle and stuff like that. But that just doesn't feel like it clicks as nicely as Black for some reason.
Keith Lee.
No, Keith Lee would.
Yeah, but you want like that mountain of a man type thing.
I think he's a different kind of mountain.
He is one heck of a mountain. Is Keith?
Nothing against Keith Lee, but for some reason, Shawn Michaels versus Keith Lee isn't exciting to me as Shawn Michaels, Drew McIntyre.
Yeah, I can see what you mean.
Yeah.
Although I do think the idea of Keith Lee versus Shawn Michaels, because Keith Lee is incredibly charismatic, and if there's one thing that Shawn Michaels is, it's incredibly charismatic. No, that's fair enough.
It's not as appealing.
But let's go on to number 4.
So, talking of the potential of a student and teacher dynamic, number 4, Daniel Bryan.
Yeah, absolutely. And you got so much history there. Like Daniel Bryan was taught, I'm doing a big inverted commas for speech marks for podcast listeners, take a drink, because he did go to Shawn Michaels training school, but he wasn't really taught by Shawn Michaels because Shawn Michaels wasn't in a good place at the time. However, you don't have to tell that version of events. You just tell the story, Shawn Michaels taught me how to wrestle. Brilliant. Lovely stuff. You've got footage you can use of that. You've got pictures of Daniel Bryan in Shawn Michaels' academy t-shirt and things like that. And you can tell all these stories about how Daniel Bryan took all those lessons and he took them around the world, and now he wants to prove that he is better than his teacher.
Yeah, and there's so many other bits you can talk about. They've had run-ins in the past since Michaels has been retired.
He kicked him in the face.
Bryan kicked him in the face.
In an angle with CM Punk, yeah.
Yeah, there's like the Triple H relationship with HBK, and you can play off Daniel Bryan's tension with him around all this.
But the question is, though, how do you get Brie Bella involved?
Oh, yeah. You need to... Yeah, Stephanie can tag all with HBK. I think that... And that would be such a good match. I mean, all of these are great in-ring matches, but both guys are so beloved by the fans. There would be an extra layer of emotion, and it would be similar to Seth Rollins. Like, this is your moment, Daniel.
I almost picture it as well, of like that moment where Michaels is in the ring and he's sort of kind of promo, and people are chanting one more match. Daniel Bryan's music hits, the crowd get whipped on the front, and he just walk down and you essentially do the Rock Hogan stare off, and you let the crowd tell the story for you. What a moment that would be.
Speaking of The Rock,
segue
number 3, The Rock.
So this one was my suggestion. I know we started off this list saying like younger guys putting people over, yada yada yada. But I think if in terms of doing dream matches that have never happened before, at least in the wider context of things, they might have been on house shows and things like that. but never on pay-per-view, never on TV. And two guys whose paths did sort of... they never really crossed at the right times. When Michaels was on top, Rocky was coming up, so that was never the right time. And then when The Rock was on top, Michaels wasn't there. And then when Michaels returned, Rock was on his way out. So they've never really had that moment. The only moment, the closest they came was at Judgment Day 2000, when Shawn Michaels was the special guest referee in Rock's Iron Man match against Triple H. And it's always been that... what a dream match that would have been. The Rock versus Shawn Michaels.
And I believe they're over their tension now.
I believe so, yeah.
The story is Rock's mother or grandmother was promoting, she got a wrestling promotion, booked Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels was a dick. Surprise, surprise, back in those days.
Yeah.
And Rocky never forgave him, essentially. This was in the early 90s, maybe late 80s. So yeah, they've always had a bit of beef around that, but... they seem to... Shawn Michaels is a completely different person now, by all accounts. But yeah, it's...
And you want to talk about something that could, like, you know, put two names up onto a poster to try and bring back those lapsed fans? Or try and...
box office.
Yeah, exactly, box office. Or try and bring in those people who like The Rock in films and want to see what he could do as a wrestler.
Yeah, and it gets Rock away from Roman. Maybe triple threat. Put Roman in there. They can both...
raise his hands at the end. It's like getting two birds with one stone.
Number 2, AJ Styles.
Now, we talked about how this was almost like rumoured at one point. There was that poster of... was it the Rumble this year? Because that was the one in Texas.
Yeah, so that would have been 2 years ago, wouldn't it? It was the record-breaking one. Was it the record? It was a Royal Rumble in the last 2 years.
I thought it was the Rumble this year. This is when these rumours were coming around. And there was that poster. It was like a fake poster or a fan poster of Shawn Michaels on one side and AJ Styles on the other side. And I remember seeing that poster being like, oh, I'd want to see that match. Like, just that poster, I was like, yeah, I want to see that. I really, really want to see that match.
And AJ tweeted it out. And, there was... both guys were doing interviews. And that's when Shawn said, I would love to wrestle AJ Styles, but... Samoa Joe's the things I can do.
Yeah.
Samoan Joe. The parallels are... The match on paper is fantastic.
It's Mr. WWE versus Mr. TNA.
Yeah, this is the house I built.
Yep.
There's so many ways you can go with this. Yeah, it'll be great. There's not really much more to say apart from AJ Styles versus Shawn Michaels. The only issue, and why it's not at number 1 really, and it's kind of the same with Samoa Joe or Nakamura, is because they're all either late 30s, 40s. And as great as the passing of the torch is, AJ said himself he's only really got 3 more years max as a full-time performer.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to give that... Do
you
want to give the Michaels win to him, who's only going to be around a bit and then become a part-timer himself, presumably? Or... and number 1 pick...
Before we go on to that, if you're watching this on YouTube and you're wondering why the lighting has just drastically changed, it's because the sun's just gone in behind a big cloud, I'd imagine, in our skylight. And so it doesn't look like we're in the middle of a nuclear blast at the moment. But anyway, number 1.
And number 1 is Adam Cole.
Baby. And this is the sort of thing, like, you can do the parallels between Adam Cole as the leader of the Undisputed Era and Shawn Michaels as the leader of DX. The group, and again, this is WWE revisionist history, so you can easily do these sorts of things. The group that revolutionized the Attitude Era, the group that started the Attitude Era, but now they want to make it undisputed. Like, we're going to make this the Undisputed Era. There's so many easy ways you can do these sorts of things. And yeah, Adam Cole versus Shawn Michaels, like what amazing parallels, like mirror images.
It'll be so good, and it's that DX Undisputed Era. You could almost base the WrestleMania card of Roderick Strong versus Triple H. I'm sure, like Triple H would love that as an NXT guy, passing a torch, and he, by all accounts, loves Roddy. And then you could have Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly versus
New Age Outlaws.
Yeah, New Age Outlaws, or a combination.
Or Road Dogg and X-Pac if they still don't like Billy Gunn.
Yeah, so, and of course, Undisputed Era win everything. Probably Triple H wins his one.
Well, they've got to have one. They've got to get their heat some way.
Yeah, and the stories you can tell building up to it of the Undisputed Era taking out DX, and DX will, they're so beloved by the fans because of the way they're presented that you can give Undisputed some real serious heat there. This could be like a Nexus invading force, cross brands, as Laurie always says it should be.
Yep.
And at the end of it, you make You only have to debut Adam Cole a few months before, maybe even a month before, and he'll be over in a couple of weeks with his baby.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, to me that's a Royal Rumble debut where they just run roughshod.
He's already debuted at the Royal Rumble.
Good point. A proper sticking around Royal Rumble.
Absolutely,
debut, where he's the only entry, but his cronies are eliminating people on the outside.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then a DX stare off.
Mate. Yes, please. Lovely stuff. Yeah, Adam Cole is definitely my number one pick.
Yeah.
It's time for some crap gimmicks. Now, if you're wondering what the heckins is a crap gimmick is a section that we do here every single Saturday on the WrestleRamble where you, the SWAF Nation, submit to us your crap gimmick submissions, and we then decide as the bookers of Crap Gimmick Wrestling if we want to sign them. We actually had an official signing of a crap gimmick at Wrestling MediaCon, where Real Dan's Dan, one of our pledge hammers, presented us with a contract for us to sign, which I thought was a really nice touch, actually. I thought it was really cute. If you're wondering what's a crap gimmick, though, what we like to do it is the 90s WWF way of you are a wrestler and a blank, or you can go very abstract with it and just come up with really odd wrestling characters. And actually, I'll be honest, those are the ones that tend to get more over with us.
Yeah, really liked last week's new signee, the veterinarian.
Yes.
A large-breasted lady dressed as a vet who comes out and says, "Do you want to see my puppies?" And everyone's like, "Yeah." And then she brings out literal cute puppies.
Yes.
And everyone's like, that's actually okay.
Yeah.
We're not that disappointed. But she doesn't wrestle. She just goes out. She just exits afterwards.
Absolutely, yeah. We've had loads of characters like that. So, would you like this week's crap gimmick submissions?
Okay, lay them on me.
If you want to send us a submission, it's luke@wrestletalk.com. That email one more time, luke@wrestletalk.com. We are currently now at the start of July in terms of where we are, in terms of the submissions that we're getting through. So, still got a lot to get through here. This one comes in from Mario, sent to us on July 7th. Hello, Oli and Luke. This is Mario from Tampa, Florida, and I am writing to submit my crap gimmick.
One of my best friends is called Mario.
So he's already on good foots with you?
Yes.
Good foots? That's the saying.
Just because his name Mario isn't enough, his middle name's Luigi Vincenzo.
Have I ever told you my mate's middle name?
What is it?
Well, he was getting married to his lady partner, as often people do, and she was changing, he was adding her surname onto his because she was
double-barreled.
Well, yeah, because she was going to be like the last lady in her lineage and she wanted to continue on the family name. So he was Lee Michael Alp, so he was taking it to Lee Michael Alp Casey, which is her surname. And that was when he realised that he could also change his middle name. And so he changed his name to Lee Michael Bruce Campbell Lucha Burt Reynolds Alp Casey.
Fantastic.
And he was the only person at the wedding that got it wrong when you have to read things out. Got things in the wrong order. But anyway, yes, that's my friend. Okay, so back to Mario. Many heels in wrestling try to get heat by bad-mouthing the city they are performing in. My crap gimmick does the opposite. May I introduce you, the suck-up. The suck-up goes into each arena wearing jerseys and gear from the city's local pro colleges teams. If it's a really small town, he's not above shilling for the local high school team. He claims to be a lifelong fan, but throws out incorrect stats and figures to make the crowd mad. He says passive-aggressive lines like, "I'm glad I had this team to root for to make this god-awful town a little less dreadful." His in-ring repertoire consists of poorly executed soccer, basketball, American football moves. When he wins, he puts on goggles and pops champagne, or apple juice, whichever gets you less drunk. I'm not sure if that's a genuine question, because it would be apple juice. And he runs around the ring like he's won a championship. When he loses, he pouts and claims he was never a fan of the team or city anyway. Thanks for your time. Enjoy the podcast on my long drives home. Also, FYI, my 6-year-old daughter finds your British accents highly amusing. That's from Mario in Tampa, Florida.
We do seem to be over with under 10-year-olds who just like to watch us.
Yeah. Well, we got told by someone at a Wrestling MediaCon, they came up to let me know that when he's giving his 3-year-old daughter her bath time, when they're drying, she says, "Can I watch the funny video?" And the funny video is you doing Nia Jax's entrance music, dressed up as Wonder Ollie and things like that. And that has led her to become a wrestling fan. She now watches wrestling and really likes Ronda Rousey, and she wants to be a wrestler.
I cannot be held responsible for how your kid, psychologically wise, grows up if if they think that is normal, each to their own.
But when that 3-year-old grows up and she does get signed by WWE, you'll be part of the story that they tell.
And the WWE 24.
Exactly, yeah, and they'll interview you 30 years from now.
They'll rewrite history.
They'll just focus on Ronda
They'll
Rousey.
say it was Stephanie McMahon who got her into the wrestling biz.
Stephanie McMahon did a video where she sang Nia Jax's entrance theme.
Okay, so Mario, the suck-up, I do like it. The bit I don't like is that where's the line?
It was the in-ring repertoire consists of poorly executed soccer, basketball, and American football moves. That's the only bit I don't like about this gimmick.
Because it doesn't have to be just sports. I thought this is... You can
He's a
make
heel.
it about anything.
Yeah.
And it's the... I'm glad I had this team to root for to make this god-awful town a little less dreadful. But that's not a suck-up anymore. I really like the idea of him saying, hey, man, say London. I love London.
Yeah.
And your little accents. And then just does a Liverpudlian accent. So stuff that's wrong, but he's trying.
Yeah.
But everyone boos him anyway.
Yeah, that's where I like this gimmick. Yeah.
Rather than just a setup for the normal cheap heat.
Yeah, going for cheap heat, but it's not cheap heat. I like that. So I'm a fan of the suck-up with that slight amendment there. So our next one comes in from George McCall, also sent to us on July 7th. And this is quite a long one, so do bear with me. Hi, Luke, not Ollie. Hope your day is treating you well. My idea is for a wrestler and a member of the commentary team who is connected to him. Hope you enjoy it. The wrestler is named Les the Ragnarok, and he is essentially Brock Lesnar, except dialed up to 11. In the build-up to his debut...
Ragnarok.
In the build-up to his debut video packages, they would hype him up by giving facts about his tough guy background, how despite being 7 foot tall and nearly 300 pounds, he moves like a cruiserweight, how he once accidentally ate his mother while trying to breastfeed him, how he doesn't reside in Suplex City, he suplexes actual cities, how his every meal consists of live sharks and meteorites, etc., etc. Long story short, he is built up to be the kind of person who would never lose a wrestling match in a million years. That if it's not for my second suggestion.
Oh, no.
My second suggestion is named Gary Gamerton, and he, should you sign him, is a member of the Crap Gimmick commentary team. One day, while exploring a GameStop, that's a video game shop in America, he was exploring a game shop built on an ancient Indian burial ground, and he came across an enchanted video game controller that allows him to take control of anyone as if they were a character in a video game. So of course he decided to use the power in the only way he would to ensure his favourite wrestler never loses a match. His favourite wrestler is, of course, Les the Ragnarok. But when it comes time for one of his matches, Gary takes out of the controller and the Titantron shows a fighting game character video screen that portrays everyone from the Crap Gimmick roster, and he always selects the Ragnarok. Normally, the Ragnarok's entrance features him doing lots of theatrics and crowd interaction, but Gary gets impatient and presses the skip button, causing the music to stop and Ragnarok to quit whatever he's doing and instantly sprint to the ring. As you can probably guess, left to his own devices, the Ragnarok could easily be one, if not the top guy in the company, but unfortunately for him, Gary Gamerton is really bad at video games and he only knows the controls for one attack, the standard punch. As such, Ragnarok loses every single match in stupid ways. For example, his opponent may throw him out of the ring and Gary doesn't know the button to climb back in, so Les will just walk around the ring apron, punching the bottom rope, and sometimes the directional button will get jammed and Ragnarok will just keep walking in a circle while his opponent wails on him, or his opponent gets the 3 count after every pin, no matter how early in the match, because Gary doesn't know which button kicks out, turning a potential main eventer into nothing more than the most intimidating looking comedy jobber of all time. Gary, of course, will never take responsibility for any of this and will instead use typical sore loser gaming excuses like laggy internet connections or his opponent using Game Shark, which is, I think, it sounds a bit like Game Genie if I was to go back in the day.
So I love Ragnarok, or whatever it's
Ragnarok.
I love Ragnarok. I love the meteorites for breakfast. I loved it up until...
He's bad at games.
Up until and including ancient Indian burial ground. I thought that's all.
Love that.
But that was all set up, you know? That was all like Lost episode 1.
Yeah.
What does all this mean? And I feel like the payoff it went a bit contrived there.
That's where I think it falls down a little bit. It's such a good idea. You were so close to it. And then it all sort of fell apart at the seams.
I don't really know how to fix it. It's just too much going on. Like I really like Ragnarok, and he's built up like this, but he's so big he can't humanly wrestle, maybe.
Yeah.
and he's just a bad wrestler, and they have to work around his lack of skill. That's the only way I can think to make. But yeah, Gary Gamerton is fun, but yeah, it's a shame because that's very, very creative, and I like the idea, but it's sort of
it's missing
the last
something.
half of it just doesn't fulfill the promise.
Like Batman v Superman.
Yeah, well,
That didn't really have a good first half either.
no, that's just not fulfilling promise on all levels.
Well, the title was The Promise.
Yes, I suppose so.
Yeah. Anyway, so we've got one
But
more.
even that, like, it was V. It wasn't versus.
Dawn of
I was
Justice.
already annoyed.
Well, I've got one more for you.
Okay.
And I feel like I might have I think I might have saved the best for last. So I'm going slightly back in time here because this one comes from Robert Beams on July 4th. Fan of the podcast / YouTube channel, I'll keep it short to the point. You will immediately spot that I have thought of the name first and worked backwards from there.
This is a good way to make things.
My gimmick is as follows. Jim Cornetto. A bitter ice cream peddler who represents modern developments within the ice cream industry, proliferation of options, competition from supermarkets, not safe for kids on the streets today, kids are all inside playing video games, which he believes are, quote, killing the business for an old-fashioned, van-based ice cream man everywhere. His entrance music would naturally be old-timey ice cream van music, which starts off quiet and gets louder as he arrives. Excited young children from the local town will gather around the ramp, coins in hand, expecting to purchase ice cream, but Cornetto just walks past them. He's an old-fashioned heel who keeps kayfabe alive and would never do such a thing as cheer up children upset by his act. His finish is the 99, an Irish whippy into the corner to set up the flake, a spear against the ring post. His heel promos were almost entirely directed at the venue's concession stand for their role in killing the business, a business that he loves. Reoccurring obsessions are that he loves the ice cream business more than the audience does, and that it would and it would have to be his way for silly S-word ice cream vendors would go and run out of town, and sensible promoters would refuse to work with them. Thank you for all the good work you and Oli, spelled incorrectly, do every week. Best, Rob.
That's awesome. Do Americans have cornettos?
Was this something that Edgar Wright talked about when they were doing the Cornetto trilogy in America to announce James-ism? That he's like, they don't really understand what Cornetto is.
Yeah, so cornettos are just a brand of pre-packaged ice cream.
Yes, it's an ice cream thing.
Yeah, and a 99 is an ice cream also.
You got a big whip, and and that's because it's Mr. Whippy, and then you get a flake in there as well.
Just to clarify that for American listeners, this is great. I really, really like it. There's not much I can say to improve it.
No, I was going to say, I really, really like Jim Cornetto. It's funny because especially he doesn't describe it, but you can see him looking like a certain person who has a similar sounding name.
Yeah, that's sign Cornetto.
And if you want to send us any questions, all you have to do is become one of our awesome pledge hammers over on Patreon, where you get access to loads of exclusive podcast content, like us reviewing old pay-per-views that are suggested by you, Ramble Club, where we talk about our favourite matches of the month, and we just posted up this month's Ramble Club for August, and it's 3 hours long of us talking about...
Really?
3 hours long, yeah, including the post-credits.
It's only 5 matches we talk about.
So you get a lot for your bucks. And also you get to send in questions to our mailbag via our awesome Patreon community. Our first one from Eden, it's SCH, so yeah. What is your favourite wrestler of all time? Mine is personally Seth Rollins, as WWE have recognised him as an amazing wrestler. He got me back into it. My favourite moment is when he pinned Jericho and RKO and Kevin Owens in the same match, and the Gauntlet match also, and also the Triple H fight.
Gauntlet match was great.
There was a little punctuation in that.
That Triple H match at WrestleMania, it went
didn't
too
work
long.
for me. It was like 40 minutes and it needed to be 20.
Yeah, but to answer the question, Kurt Angle for me.
Yeah, we get asked this a lot. Whenever we do we're going to answer questions in the videos for the first 15 minutes, always get the who's your favourite wrestler, and it's Raven. Raven is my all-time favourite wrestler because when I was getting into wrestling, no one really looked like me. And then Raven came on, I was like, that guy looks like me. He dresses like me. I had long hair. And I was like, that's who I want to be when I grow up. I want to be Raven.
Same. I felt like I was finally being represented on screen when the Olympic gold medalist Kurt Angle finally debuted in WWE.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Ryan Sanderson asks, with people like Drew McIntyre or EC3 being released and coming back years later after a run on the indie circuit, now you laughed when you read that first time round because you were like, well, you mean TNA?
Yeah, EC3. Like, you can say Impact now, but when EC3 was in TNA, that was like, they were still on Spike.
No, they weren't at that point.
Not?
I don't think they were at that point. Oh, they might have been, actually.
They were, yeah, they
They
were.
were on Spike longer than I think.
Dixie Carter stuff and just for a bit, but EC.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, no, yeah, you're absolutely right.
I wouldn't say EC3 went to the Indies.
Yes, he might have done a couple of matches for Evolve, but he was very much a TNA Impact guy. Anyway, who from WWE or NXT do you think could leave and come back a bigger star than when they left? Personally, I think Zack Ryder could benefit from a run elsewhere, given he is still relatively young. Is he? Can connect with the fans based on his history and is a pretty solid wrestler. That's from Ryan Sanderson.
Do you remember what Cody Rhodes said of all the WWE guys, if he could have on All In, who he would go for?
Pick Zack.
Zack Ryder, because he is one of the trailblazers in the whole internet fandom of wrestling.
Really, really was.
Yeah,
and that was my first experience of being truly frustrated as a fan when Zack Ryder had his YouTube show and everyone was so into Zack. And every week you would watch and there were people chanting for Ryder, let's go Zack. All of these chants, everyone was so into woo, woo, woo. And WWE would just put their fingers in their ears and were like, nope, not pushing him. Pushing him. They booked shows in his home area and just wouldn't book him on the show purposefully because they were like, you got yourself over and that's a bad thing. And it really is, it was a bad time for WWE in terms of like, we're not listening to the fans here. And they would do things like a surprise opponent for someone and everyone would be like, Ryder. And they would just bring out Dolph Ziggler to ruin everyone's fun. They thought it was funny, I guess. But yeah, so I agree with you on that one.
Very short-sighted.
Yeah, very short-sighted.
I think Daniel Bryan, not that he needs to recharge things, but it'd be great to see him on the Indies. But Chad Gable is probably I know he's got this has changed in like the last 2 weeks because he's now with Bobby Roode and who knows where that might go. But I think Gable could really become a journeyman.
But I think Gable's a good option. Sorry to cut you off. I think Gable's a good option because he is never going to be pushed as a main eventer at the moment. Even how this thing with Bobby Roode goes, he'll never be positioned as an upper mid-card main event guy. But if he did go onto the indie circuit and kind of like get these sort of main event things with Evolve, with Rev Pro, anywhere around the world really, with ICW, things like this, that would then, he would come back to NXT as a top guy and then would probably get pushed into WWE as a top guy. I mean, he's short, which will always go against him, but he'll have that reputation. So I think you're right, actually. That's probably the best option you could probably come up with.
You not got another one? Rest off my pick.
I could rest off your pick. I mean, I don't want to say Dolph Ziggler. I think that's kind of an obvious thing. Like we always said that Dolph Ziggler could go to the Indies and have a really good character refresh and then come back in a couple of years.
Oh, yeah.
But and I wonder if that would actually reignite my interest in Dolph Ziggler, which I'll be honest is usually very little to, at best. But is there anyone else on the main roster that I think could really benefit from going and coming back? Bobby Roode, do you think he's sort of stuck? Or even like Balor, really. Like Balor's sort of stuck in this role at the moment that if he left and became a bigger star elsewhere and then came back in a couple of years, they'd be like, oh no, yeah, right, sorry, he is a big star.
So people like Balor, he was a big star when he went to WWE, but Chad Gable was kind of...
Yeah, that's what you want to pick someone who's at the low.
Yeah.
And that's why Drew's such a good option. When he, in Ryan's emails, because Drew was at the bottom of the totem pole when he left, and then became a massive star elsewhere, which is why it's such a great shout.
I mean, Cody's doing it now.
Yeah,
but maybe doesn't have to go back to WWE.
Absolutely not. Doesn't need to anymore. Jared Connister asks, since how many of the matches have been announced for the latter two, what will end up being the better show? Hell in a Cell, Super Showdown, or Evolution?
This is a good question because we just did our prediction show. For Hell in a Cell, and we were quite optimistic about the card. The stories are a bit skew-if, but the actual in-ring talent and the matchups could be really good.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say that one. I think Evolution is going to be a fun show because there's going to be so many returns and just the novelty of it. But I think it's not going to be my kind of wrestling show.
Okay, interesting.
Because the wrestling...
Because you hate women.
Yeah, there's that. That's a big part of it.
Yeah.
No, it's because you're bringing back a lot of legends. There's going to be a lot of smoke and mirrors.
Like
for
the
some
Royal
of those.
Rumble.
Yeah.
Whereas like more than half of it was nostalgia acts.
Yeah, like the Women's Royal Rumble was fun, but I wouldn't... Like the Men's Royal Rumble was really well booked and had great wrestling, and I really like this year's Men's Royal Rumble.
I thought it was one of the better Rumbles.
Yeah,
It's probably the best Rumble in 10 years or so.
Yeah, I would agree as a match. But beyond, oh look, I recognise that person. I wasn't really that into the women's one. So this is the first time. I want them to knock it out the park, but I'm just out of the three. I don't think it's going to be the best one. And Super Showdown's going to be kind of like Greatest Royal Rumble, a bit of a house show.
That's what I was going to say.
With some big time matches.
Yeah, I think it will end up being a bit like a house show. But having said that, house shows are usually a lot of fun. But they'll probably be more fun than Greatest Royal Rumble was, I would imagine. I'm actually kind of looking forward to Triple H versus Undertaker because the build they're doing for it is really good at the moment. And I think that the Shield versus Mac and Dolphman should be, or the Dogs of War, whatever you want to call them, should be a lot of fun. You've got the the 6-woman tag as well. I think there'll be some good stuff on there, but you're right, it will feel like it will be a too long house show with no intermission.
Yeah.
And Hell in a Cell, I think, will be a good show because it's almost impossible not to have a good show with those stars. But WWE have proved us wrong in the past. Backlash 2018 is a great example of that.
Well, it's just the way they do the finishes.
Yes,
can
that's
leave
it,
you
yeah.
Very frustrated.
Very frustrated. But I'm going to slightly disagree with you on Evolution. Because while I do think that some of it is going to be smoke and mirrors, particularly like with legends coming back to fight new stars like, Trish Stratus and Alexa Bliss. And then the other match they've got announced is Mickie James and Lita, which I'm sure will be a nice sort of nostalgia match. I really would have preferred if it was Mickie and Trish.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
That'd be the match I would have booked. I think things like I think that everyone backstage is going to have this mindset of just like, this is very much a gimmick thing. We are doing this because WWE want to have this mentality that we are, this is a women's evolution, blah, 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 blah. It's all media, it's all PR. But they're also going to have this mentality of, I want to have the best match of the night. I want to steal the show. I want everyone to be talking about this pay-per-view. I want everyone to be talking about the wrestling that was on this pay-per-view. And things like the NXT stars, it'll be, for the NXT women, it might be the biggest, spotlight. NXT UK in particular, it's going to be like the biggest spotlight they might have in the company up until this point. So they're really going to want to try and showcase themselves. It's a bit like when we were at MediaCon. The UK guys who'd never wrestled for Impact before, their mentality was like, I want to show to Impact what I can do. And hopefully then I can get some work with them and get some more exposure and kind of like put my brand out there. So I wonder if that's going to be the same thing with Evolution. So I'm quite looking forward to the show.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the show. For me at the moment, I feel like it's going to be
gimmicky,
mainly gimmicky. And
yeah,
that'll be fun, but blah blah blah. But that's all we've got time for today.
Yeah, okay.
So please click the videos that have just appeared on our laps to catch up with the latest WrestleTalk awesome things, and this button right here, which will subscribe you to the podcast version of this show with exclusive intros and outros. I've been Ollie Davis. This has been the other one, Luke Owen, and that was Rambling.